Alright, getting another stream started. Welcome back. Welcome if this is your first time. It won't just be slides. It'll change, I swear. First proof, cat camera. So, despite the cute cat, well, not despite, in collaboration with this cat, we'll be doing some electronics. So this stream is actually continuing on a somewhat repetitive, but also kind of relaxing project in which I lose the coax on this camera. Actually, this is the project over here. It's related to this pile of D-Link cameras. This is for a class that my coworkers are putting on soon, and I'm doing a simple modification where I cut open the corner of the camera and add a serial port connector that's easy for people to access, even in a short class where they don't necessarily have, time to be doing soldering. So, been kind of pipelining the process at this point. So I've got a lot of little wires that I've tinned, and now I'm soldering them all to headers, and then I'll break off the headers in groups of 4 and solder them each to cameras, and then test them and epoxy them in place. So that's what we're back at. This cat cam was pretty easy just a second ago because Tuco was just sitting in this box. So I don't know if our luck's going to be the same. So much technology happening. All right, so here is the event. So where we left off, we had just been, well, here's a couple of these in different stages of preparation. These are mostly done, but using a slightly different assembly method. These were done using wire wrapping and 30 gauge Kynar insulated wire wrapping wire, which is this red wire. And I tried that out, but then I decided that for doing this in bulk, it would be easier to use magnet wire because this was proving really annoying to strip with the tools that I have. So that led me to this situation where I have, oh, I can't really see that on the camera. But, so this is kind of that work in progress, where I have all these headers with tinned lengths of magnet wire attached to them, and I have almost enough. I was going to do maybe, I think I need to finish this one that's currently in the clamp, and then do maybe half more, because I think 3 of these is actually enough, but I want to have some extras, because I think some of these might not have been up to quality, so I want to have room to pick and choose the best. And I've just been doing this under the microscope, and it was pretty straightforward. Microscope is not really necessary, but I think it gives more interesting footage. And it helps inspect the joints to get a better idea of what the quality is actually like. Microhex in chat was waving. Got to wave back. So let's go to this camera. And I think the state we were in, we had these sort of wire bouquets here, which were attached with Kapton tape. And I've got these with numerous ends of somewhat tinned wire. This was kind of the best I could do with sanding plus some time with the solder pot to tin the sanded off insulation. It didn't really prove effective to burn off this particular insulation with the solder pot, so this was the method I found that ended up sucking the least. So then I've just been basically joining these tinned ends to tinned headers. But on a lot of these I've been finding that I don't really have enough solder or enough flux, so I might go back and add a little bit more before I try this next round of joining things. And I think I know where the cat is. Mitsuko, I just heard you. Maybe I don't know where the cat is. He's not under me, is he? Oh, he's like right over here. Oh, cat. Keep that critter busy. Oh, nice. I just finished a spool of solder, which I was looking forward to because the spool was getting unwieldy in its almost empty state. So, man, I've had this spool for a really long time. I had to like write my name on it because I took it to the lab at school, or like not like, it was this job I had on campus working on like kind of aerospace-y sort of stuff, but all built by students. And I had to bring a lot of my own tools into that because they didn't have like tools for working with surface mount. Okay, let's put that up here. I like this little wire dispenser. It's one of those small things I discovered. Like, I didn't even know I should have one of these in my life, but it makes it easier not to just have like a messy spool of solder kind of overflowing into everything nearby on the desk. So it's kind of nice. Gotta remember to give the soldering iron just a sec to heat up. It does work better if I let it come to temperature. I wonder if this is easier not looking at the microscope. I just feel like I always have to be looking at the microscope or the camera viewfinder to make sure that the footage is good. Ooh, some of these are sunk down somewhat. Well, I think a lot of these are going to be, like, I find that most of these headers, once you put them through enough thermal stress, the pin no longer really sticks well to the plastic. So at that point, it's kind of free to move up and down. And I think some of these might be in that state, so I might just have to kind of line them up, so that they're all poking out a decent amount, and then rely on the epoxy to set them into place so that you don't destroy it by unplugging connectors. So I'm gonna have to live with that for now. These look better. Some of these are not so good. I just want this big blob of fluxy solder to wash over the pins, basically. Let's see if that makes it easier to stick these down. So, back to the more fiddly stuff. Yep, you're warm. I got it. Oh, let's make sure to give this a good fluxing first. At the risk of making that thing beep again. Maybe I should silence it. Oh man. glass is not solid. This part's fun, at least. I mean, I enjoy a lot of these steps, actually. I don't know, a lot of things that seem really drudgerous to most people I seem to encounter. I really enjoy, like, a lot of the low-level software stuff. I really enjoy it a lot. I know a lot of people encounter it and just think it's terrible and never want to have to think about how a computer works. I don't know, I guess I like trying to understand what's behind the power that I find myself interested in. So with like software, that all comes from something that I find worth understanding. This seems to be easier. Don't want to put a curse on it by giving out any more optimism than necessary, but it feels like I'm putting hair on a doll or something. But they have machines to do that really fast. There certainly seem like some similarities between hairs and like electronics at this scale. I knew this woman a while ago who is an electrologist, so she spends all her day looking at people's hairs and sticking a very tiny needle just right into the hair follicle and then pulling the hair out with tweezers. Very intricate. And so we actually kind of bonded over how intricate and fiddly the work was. You know, we liked working under magnification and that kind of stuff. But then, like, other parts of her personality I just totally couldn't get along with. Like, she was, I don't know, kind of had this traditional family life, it seemed like, where she was like very deferential to her husband, which I didn't really get. I don't know, a lot of those cultural pressures seem really foreign to me. Like, I have friends who have just twisted their lives into knots to accommodate what their parents want, because that's just what you do. And I feel like there's kind of virtue in the opposite, in learning how to break free from that. Kind of breaking the cycles of generational struggles. Also wires. Come on. It's gotta be one of those things, once I get used to which side of these wires is tinned and how long I need to hold it there and like kind of dial in the process, it should go quicker. But I'm also flailing around with a bunch of stupid stuff like how these wires are a little unwieldy based on how far back I taped this particular bundle, so maybe I'll turn it around and see if that makes it easier to hold. Oh, Tuco's in the kitchen eating. holding it like this so that I can use the iron both to steady the wire against the pin and to apply heat is what I want. And it's tricky to hold it still enough while it cools, but I think that's accomplishing the goal enough for this particular joint. Oh, I know that's out of focus. I would go over there and move the cat camera, but I'm sure as soon as I do, he'll decide to come back this way. I don't think he's got like a fresh bowl of food in there, which would be the only reason for him to hang out there for any long, predictable amount of time. Yeah, people are asking in the chat about less time-consuming ways to do this. And I can certainly get pre-made connector harnesses that just go from wires to these pins. And I have some of that here, but the problem is just that those wires are both too thick and not really heat resistant enough for this kind of, like the kind of really small scale soldering that I would want to do on the other end. And I mean, this is maybe a borderline case since I do have holes to work with this time where I expected to just have surface mount pads. So that's kind of nice, but still, I don't know. I didn't see a way to significantly speed this up without ordering custom parts or adopting a significantly different technique that wouldn't really be reflective of what you would do during, an actual reverse engineering process on this device. I mean, I can imagine making a jig of some sort to improve this process too. Like, I don't know, like I still imagine like if there was a jig that let me do the sanding and the cutting while the wires were on the headers, that might help. But as it was, I needed to use one jig to sand the wires and then remove them from that jig. And then it would be really annoying to then have to put the wires into anything else, so. That's why here I wanted to kind of combine the process of taking the wires out of these bundles and attaching them to the headers. So I think that part's going relatively fast. I just have to get used to where the solder is going to stick on these things. That's what's giving me a little bit of an unpredictable job at the moment, is just like which part of this wire is tinned, and like maybe I don't even want to use that one. And where did the solder ball on the header actually flow to? Is kind of what I'm having to ask. I don't know why you're complaining about my soldering iron tip already. The soldering iron tip is like brand new. Is this just one of those things where there's always something to complain about? Oh, that's 2 wires, oops. See, that's something to complain about. You idiot, you're soldering 2 wires. This is supposed to be 30 gauge, not whatever double that is. This soldering iron tip is literally less than a week old. And maybe you're seeing all the detail of the debris under the microscope, but to the naked eye, it looks really shiny and new. The harsh lighting under the microscope is pretty good at showing off all the imperfections in something. I mean, also keep in mind you're seeing residue of burning plastic and burning insulation here, so like when I clean the tip, it's going to be clean, but it's not going to stay that way for, as soon as I make a joint with it. That was nicer. That one had a nice tinned side. Oh yeah, now there's the discussion about wet sponge versus brass. I do like the brass sponges for cleaning your soldering iron tip. For most kinds of debris, I find it actually works better than the sponge, and it does seem to keep the tips lasting longer. So I use those everywhere I can. Sponges are satisfying sometimes, though. Like, I did use the sponge for the Boldport Engineer Superhero kit because it came with a special sponge, and that was kind of cute. I don't know how you do like a custom patterned brass sponge. That seems tricky. Since the brass kind of, it's kind of amorphous. It just kind of goes everywhere. It's like lathe turnings. My bouquet is shrinking. Where's the cat? Oh, he's somewhere cute. I should put the camera on him. Cat's sitting on the table. It's a good place for a cat. Table kitty. That kitty's got, well, not a seat at the table. I guess he's just on the table, which is kind of, I can understand that. That's the way I roll sometimes. Oh yeah, also a good point from Luca in the chat that there's less thermal shock with the brass roll, and yeah, it does. The thermal shock is bad for the tips. Plus, it'll cool it off, which sometimes you want that, but usually you don't. I feel like I'm kind of both soldering and heat staking the wire into the plastic so that the plastic kind of holds the wire a little bit until the solder fully solidifies. That's interesting. I wonder if that's a valid strategy. It's probably not amazing for the tip, but I'm trying to avoid that, but it's kind of unavoidable. Like, I can't be too ginger about pressing down and form a good thermal connection. That bouquet is running low, and I should reset this camera before it stops itself. Some of these joints just don't look good, but like, it's not like the joint, like if this is under a bunch of mechanical stress, the wire is probably still gonna break first, So I don't think the joint has to be that strong as long as it's electrically sound. Because all of this is getting epoxied down. Two for one, kind of. I think I might have just gotten too much junk on that. Yeah, that needs Ugh, I need some fresh solder probably. I hear you, little tiger. I think that means he wants to go outside. He's made some good friends among my neighbors, actually. So I think sometimes he's yelping to get out because somebody he knows is home. I'm gonna go open the door for him. Hey, Cat. You wanna go outside? Yeah, he's acting like he's got a plan. He just started marching down the hallway. I think maybe his friend Lou is around. Okay, well that one doesn't look good, but it's connected. This one's almost done. What am I doing with bouquets? Or bouquets? Here we go. I've got a little bit here. And, well, about out of tinned wires here. We've got a few left that I'm consolidating. That's good, then we can move on to the next step. Several of these that escaped from earlier bouquets. Oh, I was trying to parse a comment from Sodium in chat, who says, oh, if you're going to be epoxying the headers to the PCB anyways, maybe it'd be effective to solder the header pins in individually, and then slide the plastic spacer down over them after the fact. And now that I'm trying to parse how that would change things. I'm imagining maybe that means to solder the header pins directly to the board, and then to because the headers don't really slide in these spacers that well. I mean, they start to as a side effect of heating them up, but it's hard to actually like push them through. I could imagine just taking these pins and soldering them to the to their existing holes, and then kind of like spreading them out enough that they're easy to put headers on still, and then epoxying over that. Yeah, I mean, that might be doable. We could see. I think these are so close together, though, that it would really crowd out the connectors, so I don't think that would really be workable. Let's experiment. Hey, Tuco, you're back. Did I just hear him? Am I hallucinating cats? Maybe I'm hallucinating cats. First sign of cat lady dementia. So the header pins are larger than these holes. Let's get this under the microscope. This is a really good thing to check, at least. So if these were just surface mount pads and not through holes on the board, I would definitely want them to be attached somewhat separately just to give them some mechanical isolation, because surface mount pads tend to be pretty delicate all on their own. With this, it's like you could basically surface mount this pin by sitting it on. Oh, we need some more light on that camera, really. So I think I could basically surface mount it. It would be stronger than just a pin on a bare surface mount pad, because you'd have that plated through hole actually acting as kind of a rivet to hold this into the board. So it'd be held on by the solder, which is still not especially great, but so I could basically just hold this here and solder it and then epoxy over it. I've done basically that for some of my test rigs here with like the clock inputs on that voltage glitching rig. I feel really dubious about making a bunch of those and handing them off to students and shipping them through the mail, though, because, I mean, first of all, these are going to be really crowded, so there's naturally going to be a tendency for these pins to be forced sideways. And then when they do, it's going to put all the stress right on the solder joint. And so even though it might not destroy the circuit board because you've got the via there, it would end up putting tons of stress on the solder and probably break the joint. So I think in this case, like if I was just doing something for myself, I would consider that as a faster option. But since I want this to be somewhat durable, I think I want the wires to act as kind of a shock absorber at least. So the wires I have now are kind of longer than I would want, which is an artifact of kind of having them be long enough to handle through the stripping operation I did in bulk. But I don't think that's a big deal. I think I can just kind of bunch up the extra wire and it's not going to be a problem. I could even epoxy the header on over here, but my reservation there is that it'd be nice if I could make this, I don't know, I guess I can imagine pros and cons. Like epoxying the header on kind of right around here, and epoxying it to the board and then just bunching up the extra wire. That would make it such that you could take the case completely off without having to worry about any of the wiring. It would be self-contained. On the other hand, kind of running the wire this way and epoxying the connector like flat against the case this way might actually make the whole thing a little sturdier, because this would have a nicer anchor, and it would also be a little bit more inspectable. Like it'd be visually very clear what was going on, which might be a plus in this situation. It would mean that to open the case completely, you'd have to be careful about the wires, but I think I could leave enough slack so that it would still be possible. So that might be an option too. I'll have to compare those two. But yeah, I mean, since this is a teaching tool, having something that is easy to understand is a big plus, even if it's not necessarily otherwise the most optimal solution. That is a cat. That is not a cat hallucination. I know my cat hallucinations, and that is not one. Hey, Tuco. Wildmania in chat asks about soldering in a female connector. I have some female turned pins that you could use. It's like what I was using for those oscilloscope probe mounts in my voltage glitching rig. I think those are just way too big for this. They would have the same problem as the header pins, that they wouldn't fit in the holes and they would be crowded out. I could, of course, order a connector that actually fits this footprint, but well, part of it is I don't want to wait for the connectors to come in, and part of it is, well, because it wouldn't just be that connector, I would want to probably have like a rig that breaks it out into wires that are easy for students to plug into like a serial header like this. So like I think I could get something like that made. It's just I don't know if I could do it on short notice, without having the right contacts. And it would probably be expensive, and this is something I already know how to do. But I mean, yeah, clearly the manufacturer of this has some kind of little breakout dongle that they just plug into a connector that's mounted here. So, okay, I was almost done with these. Let's actually finish that up so we can move on. Gathering these things to the best of my ability. Oh, there's room for a few more on here. Tsuko, I feel you. He does not hesitate to let me know that he's there with his fingers. Oh yeah, Kyle in chat mentions that this is consistent with what he's seen from the other Senryo hardware trainings. And yeah, I was pretty sure that this is how they roll. I mean, they sent me some magnet wire to use, which I haven't had to open since I already have this giant spool here at the desk. It's like we're just all neighbors here. A spool of magnet wire here and there. Neighbors in the security research context. Oh yeah, I've got some neighborly obligations to work on soon. Don't want to give away too much about an article before it's published, you know, but it'll be related to some of the stuff I've been doing here. yes, neighbors in a Travis Goodspeed sense. For those who know the good security researcher Travis Goodspeed. I mean, it's not just him, but he's certainly the first person I would think of. Okay, I think I don't know if I need to even do another one here. I mean, I feel like I should need another one from the numbers, but oh no, maybe this is fine. 30. Well, so I think I've got a little bit less than 30 here. Oh, okay, here's the rest of the bouquets of wire. Yes, now the numbers make more sense. I have more of these to do. I was just missing the wires that went with them. So I have 2 of these. Okay. That makes more sense. So let's clean this, get it off the rig, and then do another one of these, and then we'll have enough. Oh yeah, real neighbors carry pink pagers. But ain't that the truth? Yeah, this would be a good time to give a shameless plug for the International Journal of Proof of Concept, or Get the Fuck Out, which I highly recommend. I've also written a couple of articles in it, which you might find interesting, but there's loads of good stuff there. One thing I was recently thinking of is there are quite a number of articles well, a couple at least, and they're really in depth, so it feels like there are more. By the 4 a.m., the kind of legendary Apple II crackers. So they talk about Apple II game copy protection in quite a lot of detail. I think that was in the last POC or GTFO, or maybe one previously. I lose track, but there's an index somewhere. I don't really know how effective this is, but it feels better than nothing. And it's nice to stress test these a little bit before they get in the hands of students and postal workers. Isopropanol. Alright, that's good. 3 of these little brush-like contraptions. Great. I don't know what blue tack and isopropanol do together, but the result is kind of weird. I don't think they're reacting, I think it's just kind of gross. Oh yeah, a comment from US Water Rockets in chat who says, I feel like we're making a wig for a humanoid robot. Oh, and also Sebastian asks if I tried the high temperature white jaws for my vise. I actually have not. I have been forgetting to order those. That would be a good idea. Yeah, you can see a couple of divots in this, but so far nothing that's affected usability. All right, more stiction. Oh yeah, and as pointed out by Deadbug Engineering in the chat, I don't have the right kind of wire stripper to do wire wrap quickly. Because that would be a good option, and I tried doing wire wrap for a couple of these, but stripping just proved to be too time-consuming with the tools I have right now. So I ended up stripping magnet wire in bulk using a cardboard tube, some sandpaper, and a box cutter. I did actually have a wire wrapping tool, but I had lost the stripper that went with it, and it was like partially clogged with some like broken off IC leads, so like I clearly had seen better days. And I think I have another wire stripper that's in better shape, but I couldn't find it, and that one's from so long ago that it might have been, like lost to a previous makerspace, or it might have been like loaned to someone and never gotten it back or something like that. But I'm going to keep my eye out for that because it's a pretty nice tool. I just don't even know where it would be at this point. Yeah, I've done more wire wrapping than I probably should have. There's this board, I don't know, like one of my earlier, well, I guess, I don't know what I would describe this as. I guess it was like a laptop that I was trying to build. I called it the kiwi, kind of after the fruit, but kind of after the bird. It wasn't really particularly Australian, although I thought that was not necessarily a bad connotation either. And yeah, it was basically my attempt to make like a one laptop per child kind of thing in the late 90s. And what it actually ended up being was a way for me to learn how to build an embedded Linux machine around basically a Palm Pilot chipset, like an old PDA, if you've ever seen those. Tuco, I hear you. What's up, buddy? You're the star of the show, but you're not on camera. Get back in frame. I would pet him, except I can feel there's some flux on my hands. I don't really want to get flux on my cat, you know? Because he's just going to lick his coat. So that's probably not good for him. Oh. Mike from New Zealand points out that the kiwi is a New Zealand bird, so I appreciate that correction, thanks. So I clearly didn't know anything about actual kiwis. I just used the name because that's how tech people roll, I guess. I ended up making a circuit board for it, but the circuit board was basically a wire wrapping adapter, since I was just so unsure of the whole design that I didn't really want to commit to anything. So I designed this circuit board that was effectively a breakout for a bunch of surface mount parts that I otherwise didn't really know how to work with. So there was the processor was a 68EZ328 from Motorola, which was a 68,000. So it didn't even actually have a memory management unit, so it couldn't run full Linux, but you could run a variant called UC Linux. And it was one of the earlier system on chips, so it was like kind of novel that it had a built-in DRAM controller, and you could just connect a memory chip to it without any external interfacing, which was kind of novel. So I built a board with that and some flash and some DRAM, and I built a really simple like audio and serial and kind of a halfway complete LCD and keyboard interface. Wrote a bootloader for it. Made a terrible mistake in the PCB footprint, so I had to solder the DRAM, basically hot glued it to the board and then ran wire wrapping wire from all the pins to the pads. It was just such a mess. I learned a lot and made a big mess. So I know these are really under fluxy, but I'm just kind of dribbling solder on them right now, and then I'll go back with the flux pen. Aw. Axel from chat says, my cat is still extremely fascinated by Tuco. Every time I watch this, she sits directly in front of the TV and stares at Tuco and touches the screen to get him. Aw. That's really great. Oh, and US Water Rockets in chat says, that's how we did DRAM upgrades back then. I think referencing the little wires and the chip hot glued on top. Yeah, I remember seeing some DIY forums where people did RAM upgrades for Palm Pilots. I don't know if I saw any that were quite that extreme, but I definitely saw people stacking RAM chips and soldering most of the pins straight through, but then wiring up the chip selects separately. So that still takes some diligence and probably magnification if you're lucky. You could do it without, but it's a lot nicer with a microscope. I think it's really disturbing and funny how bristly this thing looks under the microscope. It's like a Muppet or something. Meep, 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 meep. Do you realize that Muppet head is saturated with flux? I had no idea. That's why he sounds that way. Got to fuss my wires, a little bit of dross to take off, and make sure that they're roughly the right length, I guess, or at least a usable orientation. Okay. Yeah, of course Beaker would be soaked in flux. Oh no, the wires are sticking to my sleeve, and my cat is meowing. These two things couldn't possibly be related. Tuco, you're sitting next to the camera. That doesn't help you be on the frame. Oh, man. That's not a joint. That's what happens when the pull test fails, because I'm thinking about pointing the camera at my cat. Tuco, you want to play? I don't want to get flux on you, but maybe I can find a bolt that I can throw easily. I don't see one within reach. And I'm kind of in the middle of this. He's like rubbing his face on the tripod. Oh, there's a nice little Tuco vortex down there. Hey, buddy. Tuco, what do you think about the vortex of you? It's just you all the way down. Oh, maybe this weekend I'll spend some time on actually trying to make progress on the Tuco Cam robot being a thing. Because that seems like a useful stream upgrade. And, ow, that is still very hot, and also not as connected as I thought. 0 for 2. It's, some water on that finger. Ah, okay, maybe I need to wash my hands and throw some bolts for the cat for a sec. Hey, Tuco. Hey, Tuco, I can give you some attention now. Tuco, where are you? Oh, missed connection. I make time for my cat and then he leaves. Maybe if I play with a bolt, he'll come back? Oh yeah, that's easy. Bolts, key to my cat's heart. Also blood. Yeah, these are 40 by 1 headers. Okay, Tuco. Throw a couple of bolts for you, because I think that might help both of us right now. Do you want one anyway? Here's your box. How you doing, cat? You just gonna leave it over there? You know I have got more. You know McMaster just sells these. Fickle little cat. Alright, well maybe it's back to work if the cat doesn't want the bolts. Cat vortex. Do you want something else, Tuco? Do you want food? Tell me what you want, little guy. This bolt? Anybody? Are there just too many other bolts around here? Do you need me to clean up all the irrelevant bolts in your life? All the bolts you've already killed? Do you want one of these two? You see this? You want it? You want it? Not enough to bring it all the way back, though. Tuco, I misunderstand you today. You don't want food, do you? It's not really food time. Do you want this pad closer to where we're hanging out? Is that what you wanted, Tuco? Did you want something else to sit on like that? I can't tell. Maybe that was it. I don't know. Probably not. All right. Weird cat. So, back to the land of little wire bouquets and hopefully not burning myself and attaching things and all that sort of jazz. Ooh, a bunch of these are a little bit crusty. Oh, Tuco, don't do that, honey. He was like clawing at my mat. Tuco, stop that. You're not gonna listen to me. I got him all these carpet squares, which I don't really mind if he claws them up, but that mat is not going to take much abuse if he treats it that way. This just needs more solder. Why is this so bad? I think it just needs more solder. Inspecting the damage. Don't think that burn left much of a mark. Some of the worst burns I've had were from transistors. I remember having this half-moon shape, like TO92 transistor imprint on my thumb for quite a while. Not pretty, but pulls fine. That was nice. More like that, please. That could be better. Yeah, I can't tell. I think he just got bored. I don't think he usually listens when I tell him not to do things like that. Like, anytime my friend Zach came over, anytime he comes over, Tuco always has to like inspect anything that he leaves here, and I've got to make sure that anything that's like leather or something like that is hung up, or Tuco has no respect for other people's objects. Everything is his. That was nice. More like that. Yeah, I guess I got used to touching the very end of the header with my pinky to move it around, but then that strategy breaks down in the edge case where I've just soldered the last one. Oh, geez. Nicholas in chat says they had a TO220 package split apart and then it hit them in the forehead. Wow. Ouch. And then Dead Bug Engineering says, I never burn myself, but I know what it's like to have I know what a 16-pin dip package feels like when it's lodged in one's foot. Ow. I thought Tuco's bolts were bad. That's been my new Lego here. I've stepped on Legos before, and it's bad. The Tuco bolts are similar. I don't know if it's really... I'm sure the Legos depend on the piece and the orientation, and same with the Tuco bolts. So I suspect there's a lot of overlap in the pain levels they're each capable of. Some of these are more stuck than I would like. That one doesn't look like it has much solder. Will it prove me wrong? Am I just... Oh, I think it's fine. Cool. I think Tuco went outside. I'm liking the idea of epoxying this to the plastic part and leaving... I think what I do is I leave a little bit of a loop of slack in the wire and then tape that down with Kapton so that it's out of the way, but if you want to take it apart, you just undo the Kapton and then the loop of wire comes free so that there's enough slack to take it apart comfortably. I like that idea. And then it's also something where you can really easily make it visible, like what goes where. Welcome back, cat. I didn't even see you arrive. You just started making meows off to my right, which isn't even the direction that the outside is toward. Tuco, what do you want? Maybe he wants more of those freeze-dried minnows, but he doesn't know how to ask for that, because it's so specific. Tuco, what do you want? Oh, he went back and sat on the thing. Guess that's a... Whoa, that's 2 wires. No, 2 wires. Ah. There we go. Oh, that's 3. Jeez, get out of there. Some of these stuck together during the solder pot stage, where I was tinning a bunch of wires at once, and they were somewhat separated. That's going to be annoying. Let's not stick out that much. I can really see the bubble of melted varnish there. Anybody else remember flash bulbs, like for cameras? I'm not quite old enough to have needed them, but they were still in stores when I was a kid. So, most people had cameras with battery-powered flashes, but I remember you could go to the grocery store and next to the batteries they would sell, or next to the batteries and film, because film was still a thing that you would just get at the grocery store, they would sell these little strips, like a little plastic box basically that had a bunch of compartments that would each have what looked kind of like a light bulb, but it contained, I think it was a very thin magnesium wire, anyway, and something that caused a chemical reaction such that when the wire heated up, it all reacted very, very quickly and formed a bright flash of light. So it looked kind of like a light bulb, except you could only fire it once. Each bulb was disposable, so that's why you had the strip of a bunch of them. And then I remember after firing them, because, of course, I didn't have a camera that needed them, but I just saw these in the store and used what little money I had at the time to buy some to play with. And it was fun, and it was kind of special since they were these kind of weird disposable objects. But even after they were already fired, they had this weird appearance because the glass on the outside was covered in some kind of material that would kind of bubble up and then re-solidify. So it kind of reminds me, like that bubble right there. The light bulb exteriors would start to do that after you let the light out. After that magnesium or whatever it was had reacted. I think it was a reaction between there was a fine metal wire in there and some kind of gas, and I think that's what was reacting, but I forget the details. U.S. Water Rockets says magnesium wire in an oxygen envelope. Wow, that would do it. Oxygen. And it didn't take much voltage either. I remember setting them off with like a AA battery. Well, a couple broke off and left one there. This one didn't attach very well, but at least that's a starting point. Oh, I hear Tuco. He's just upstairs doing his litter box thing. He has this weird ritual he does every time he uses that thing. Kind of like scratching stuff that's nearby. That was a nice one. More like that. I'm gonna be really good at this by the time I don't need to do it anymore. Of course, there'll be a lot of footage to choose from when I edit something together about this. I think this is working so much better just because I put more solder and more flux on. I think that was really the only thing I was missing. Otherwise, the technique was fine. Maybe some of these bouquets of wire are less well-tinned than others, but I think the main difference has been the preparation of the pins here. That one was less good, but it'll do. I'm also noticing that these wires have a lot of residual flux dried on them, which is melting when I get them hot, which seems nice. I mean, it leads to stickiness on my hands, but the wire likes it. Flux is really great for solder and terrible for everything else. Well, maybe solder and making things intentionally sticky and gross. If you ever want to do that, but that seems like a weird goal. Oh, there's a comment from Mike in chat from Mike's Electric Stuff about wrapping the wire around the pins first. I think that's in relation to this. I think I tried that approach. Like I tried putting a bunch of these down in a breadboard and then wrapping pins around them. And the problem at that point was that it wasn't really working to just burn through the wire. Like I ended up having to pre-tin it. So, and I can see that wrapping approach working if I did if I sanded them in that jig. Because yeah, I mean basically I used one jig to strip and cut the wires, and then this is the follow-up to that. But if I could make a single jig that strips and cuts while they're positioned on this header, then that would save a step. But I'm almost done with this. It's definitely the case that I'll find all the best process optimizations right when I don't need them anymore. I'm almost done with little wires to put on here. I think I've got a couple more just hanging out on the desk, but then it'll be time to go to the next step. Oh, cool. Mike also suggests feeding the wire down a dispensing needle. That's cool. It's related to something I've wanted to try for a while, where for a while I've wanted to make some kind of CNC machine that can build stuff in 3 dimensions out of hookup wire, and then preferably also have something on the tip that would let you make either spot welds or little solder joints. And if you wanted to be really fancy, you could have like a surface mount part feeder. And now you have a robot that can make circuits in 3 dimensions just out of wire and surface mount parts. I think that would be fun. I think that's about all I got, so let's start the next step. Let's clean this slightly. Oh, never mind. Here's one more I didn't see earlier. These just keep coming. Okay, let's do this then. All right. So yeah, I should need, well, I'll have enough pretty soon. I think I'm going to have some extras. But it'll be fast to put these on, and I'd rather be able to have extras to discard than have to go back and do more of these. I mean, I guess what I'm saying is I suspect some of these will end up having flaws, and having extras will allow me to be more picky in which ones I actually use. Is that particular stickiness the flux or the tape? I can't even tell. I suspect it'll be handy to just have some of these around the shop too, in case I end up having extras that are usable. Oh yeah, the special magnet wire that you can solder through is coming up on the chat again. Been meaning to get some of that to try it. Like it wouldn't really be timely enough for this particular project because this is kind of something we needed as soon as we could, but I would love to have some of that in my arsenal of tools here for next time. Ooh yeah, some of these are really nicely tinned. I don't really want that sticking out quite so far. cool off. All right. Let's see. I'm just gonna finish off this current little bouquet of wires. Oh, that's right, cleaning. Cleaning is the next step. Let's straighten these out. Brush and some alcohol. Not the most essential, but I want to clean them a little bit since I am going to be epoxying to them, and I think this might help the epoxy hold. Juicy. A little bit more three-dimensionality to some of these. All right, take that out. Cat is still not around. Yay, little combs. All right, a little bit more of this. Just gonna finish out this current bundle of wires and then leave this step in the dust. Ugh. Got like bits of this blue tack with isopropyl alcohol kneaded into it. Tinning, tinning. Oh yeah, Mike has a really good description of the tinning process for magnet wire, which I agree with 100%. So he describes it. He says, start from the end and pass the wire into a blob of solder, and the solder sticks to the bare face of the wire and then kind of peels off the insulation starting from there, taking the enamel with it. Yeah, the little bare end of the wire is going to be much easier to get a thermal connection with. So I was hoping that the solder pot would also have that same effect, but it just didn't really seem to do it in a timely manner, so I ended up bulk tinning or bulk stripping these using sandpaper instead. That's a little overdoing it. I think that's enough to start with. Oh yeah, another good comment from Mike. He says he wishes they would make Kynar wire much thinner than they usually do. I concur. I would like to have thinner Kynar insulated wire. Usually it just comes in 30 gauge. For reference, this magnet wire is 32 gauge, and I think I have some in my shop all the way down to 40 gauge, which is quite thin. Oh, there you are, cat. I hear you. Tuco, I know you're there. I feel you on my leg. Hey, Tuco. Hey, Tuco, you want a bolt? Cat. Oh, yeah. Mike says, what I want is an iron that'll spit a droplet of flux on demand. That would be great. I almost wonder if you could retrofit one of those desoldering tools with the bulb, so that instead of using the bulb to like suck solder out, you use it to like, you attach like a flux syringe to that same mechanism and put a smaller needle on the end. I wonder if you need any active cooling to keep the flux near the solder tip from getting too hot. What is even going on here? Okay. Oh, there's like 6 of these left or something. If I can find a side that has any solder whatsoever. I hear him. Maybe he's up to his other pastime, chewing on bungee cords. There's this one place I let him do it where it seems pretty safe. Whoa. Anyone else see that cool ripple at the top of the wires? It was like pretty nicely synced up with the camera frame rate, I guess. I think I see Tuco in my peripheral vision, but I can't quite tell what he's up to. Maybe that was just the other monitor. Oh, there's like 3 of these left. Cool. Last one. Okay. Clean those and then start attaching them to cameras. So this means I can do the soldering. Well, actually, probably the taping first. Tape the wire, like break off groups of 4, tape them to the cameras, then solder them, test them, epoxy them. I think that's the order the rest of this goes in. Cleaning. I guess the hallway is more exciting than this cleaning party. For the cat, at least. I don't know, I guess if I had hallway cam, a lot of us would probably be watching it too. I guess I did have hallway cam before. I threw my analog camera out there. That was fun. balance between chasing the cat with cameras and actually getting work done on the streams, you know. Oh, Teely in the chat suggests repurposing some of the old Lego hydraulic kits for Flux. That's fun. I also had some fond nostalgia for those. I don't remember hydraulic, but I definitely remember Lego pneumatics. I was definitely into Lego Technic for a while, and somehow I managed to get a pneumatics kit, and I don't think I had any way of like electrically controlling it, but I had, you know, there were a couple of valves and like a spring, like hand-activated pump and some cylinders. It was super fun. All right, let's clean this up. Tuco, are you around here? Oh, there he is. You moving as soon as I put the camera on you too? I hear you too, bro. I don't know what to do about you right now. Okay. It also occurs to me that pretty much all the rest of this should probably happen in stages, where like I fill my desk with these, solder a bunch of them, mix some epoxy, then set them aside for the epoxy to dry, and then move on. So basically I want to size that according to how many can comfortably fit on the desk and what kind of epoxy batch I feel like making up. So first step is just to break off a bunch of these. Hey Tuco, I hear you. You want some attention again? I get that. You want some of this? All right, cat break. So, here's all the cameras so far, plus the ones on my desk. Oh man, you know, it's tempting to actually just desolder these from these cameras so that they're all the same, but I don't know if that should matter. Because, I mean, I guess now that I decided to epoxy the connectors to the case instead of to the circuit board, I actually benefit from slightly longer wires, so maybe I will redo these. I mean, it's just a couple of them. I mainly had these for footage anyway. So let's just take that apart and then start doing these all the same way for consistency. Oh, Tuco. He was just hanging out here in the box, you know. Don't think I'm even really gonna bother getting this on camera. insulation on that gets a little melty. Let's try to at least do it under this camera. Yeah, currently I'm using this tip rather than a smaller one, mostly because one of these holes has a really big ground plane attached to it. Okay. One more to desolder. Get it back to the same state as the rest of these. Let's also don't currently have a great way of holding these. The stick vise kind of holds them, but I don't really have flat sides. Tuco's been so shy of the camera today. Okay, so what is my batch size I want to work with? Let's maybe put the piece of metal away too, because this is going to be scratchy. Okay. I feel like I could handle another row here. 15 at a time. So I'll roughly just have 2 of these batches to work with. So first I'm going to attach headers roughly with tape, and then kind of move all of these slightly aside, and then work on one at a time for soldering, probably under the microscope because it's convenient. Okay, so first step here is excluding any of these that look unusable to break them into groups of 4. And kind of give them to one of these. most of these are fine. I think I'm going to have a decent number of extras. These are also the last ones I did, so I've already made most of the mistakes. How did that end up being a multiple of 4? That's lucky. And 2 more for this plate. These are getting a little wobbly. Press them down a little. Even that out a little more. Some more of these are usable. That'll do. Right. So the way I plan to run these is just to kind of fold out the wires this way. Sit pretty flat. Then I'm just looking for a convenient spot for all of these. I think ideally it would end up going kind of right there-ish. So I think if I put the connector approximately there, that still leaves enough room to plug into it pretty well. And the wire can loop around here. I can tape it down kind of diagonally right there. And then when disassembling it, you can just undo the tape and give yourself some more slack with the wires. I wonder if this would be easier if I epoxy it first. I was preferring not to epoxy until doing the electrical test, but I think since these wires are just soldered and I did a pull test, I think I'm fine with doing an epoxy at this point. Well, I don't know if it actually matters, because I think whether or not I epoxy it now, I think I need a thin piece of tape just to hold. So like to hold this in position, I think I basically want some tape right where my finger is. So I don't think it's going to matter whether I epoxy it now or later. So I think I want this to be something like that. Oh man, this will need some practice. Let's make some little pieces of tape maybe. The perfectionist in me doesn't want to cover up the power light with the Kapton, since that would change its color. So, still trying to figure out what the easiest way to do this is going to end up being. Basically that, and then maybe I can just have that. Maybe that's enough. Oh. Yeah, I think a different order of operations here is definitely going to be easier. So I think I do want to put this Kapton down first, but then it's going to be easier to solder these before taping them for sure, to make sure that they all go to the right place. So at least make sure these have a good comfortable length on them. I think that's fine. And that tape will make that much easier to epoxy later. Oh, Chico, I hear you. You're back. I know. Yeah, I'm liking that. It seems like a good compromise between, you know, kind of something that's easy to understand and something that's easy to use, I guess. So, order of operations here. Straightening that out, putting the wire on, and using that to stick it down. And it should be shorter because I don't want it covering up the power light. Well, that one isn't quite covering the power light. I'll leave that one be. Let's just double check that this is actually a convenient way to plug this in. Very gently. Oh yeah, that'll be fine once that's epoxied on. Very delicate right now, but with a little bit of glue, it'll be great. Trying not to be too much of a perfectionist for this part, because this part doesn't matter much. I mean, this is one of those projects where not much needs a huge amount of perfection. Everything just needs to be pretty good. Oops, that's less perfection than I'd like. That's really crooked. These are going to be cute. Okay, I will definitely appreciate having some of these pre-prepped headers in my shop if that's the case. Which maybe means this is a product someone should sell. Like headers pre-joined to magnet wire for all the crazy hackers who do such things. Oh, so Scott in chat is asking what's going on. He just tuned in. So hello, the white things are they are D-Link IP cameras. So they have they have Ethernet and Wi-Fi. They're basically like a router but with a camera on it and some camera-ish sort of software. And these are for an upcoming training that some of my coworkers are doing. I'm just helping out with hardware prep since this is a shorter class than usual. There won't be time to do the hardware prep in the class, so doing it separately. So each of these is one of those on the other side. And I cut out the corner of all of these without even bothering to open it the whole way since it's not necessary. And now I spent a bunch of time just prepping this little wiring harness, but now that's ready and I'm gluing it on so that gluing it seems to be a good next step since that'll give the glue more time to dry. And I don't really see a lot of reason not to glue it next. I don't think I'm actually mailing these out today, so at least they'll have overnight to cure, but planning on using 5-minute epoxy for it anyway, though. It's not like I need something with a super long cure time. I don't know, maybe 5-minute epoxy is a little risky with a batch this big. This should be fine. This will be really quick. I think I've also got 30-minute epoxy handy that's still fresh, which might be safer. Sounds like it's still raining outside. Oh yeah, the rain's nice. Well, if the cat's not gonna get in frame, maybe I can at least put the rain on camera. Oh, he shows up for food. Now I know. Now I know why he's really here. Hands are still wet. It's not going to help the Kapton tape. All right. Be right back. All right. Zuko's eating. My hands are no longer wet. Everything is right. It's raining. The rain was looking good on the little camera monitor, but I couldn't find a flat surface to sit the tripod on. It sounds really nice. Oh, and it's getting harder even. Camera with serial port. Well, this will make them easier to test if the epoxy is cured by the time I'm testing them. I won't have to be quite so delicate with the plugs in that case. Wow, I just noticed these T's, the letter T embossed in these headers. Like, I wonder if one side is supposed to be the top? Maybe that's just a brand. It's only on one side. There's some conductive debris. Let's get rid of that. That's better. We don't like conductive debris in this town. An aluminum tumbleweed rolls by. Hello, train. Yeah, I think I feel a little better about using 30-minute epoxy than 5-minute epoxy for this. So I think I'm gonna grab some of that. I should have some over on the other side of the room. That's the first one again. So, this little group, get these gluing and then do the same thing to the next group. Work in a couple of batches of 15 or whatever it ends up being. So, I'll see if I can find that 30-minute epoxy. Alright, maybe that epoxy is fake. I know I at least have this stuff, which should be fine. Maybe I can even mix it with a scale this time. Don't know if the scale is going to be sensitive enough, but let's give it a shot. Alright. 'The scale is only accurate to 1 gram. Two grams? Alright. What do we have as far as stir stick? I've got some wooden bits over here. This scale is not really sensitive enough for this. Four grams, all right. That's a bunch of epoxy. Okay. It'd be almost nice to have just like a syringe full of epoxy for this part of the job. putting a liberal amount on because I want it to pretty well protect both the wires and anchor the header down onto the plastic. But I'm trying to avoid the actual active area of the header where, we expect to plug things. I probably mixed too much epoxy. I blame the gram accurate scale. I think I've got a better scale somewhere. The rain sounds really nice. It feels, it's pretty subtle here. I don't know if any of that's coming through on the stream. This epoxy's a little bit warm. Just barely noticeable. Well, through the cup at least. I'm not going to put my finger in it. Alright. Yeah, I definitely mixed up too much epoxy. There's a decent amount left in here. Alright, well, I'll put this aside and let's do another batch. And put this scale away because this was not helping. I shouldn't put those into the box that Tuco likes to sit in. A different box. I don't think Tuco would enjoy sitting in this box. Oh yeah, I also need to pay a little bit of attention to the angles here. Because like, angled a little bit up is fine, being totally flat is fine, but angling down is not good because that'll make it hard to plug anything in. That's something to check before the glue gets too set. Let's find another box. Maybe I'll have to use this box too. Just keep Tuco away from it. Sorry, Tuc. I'll go put both of these somewhere. I don't think my cat will disturb them, like in the robot closet. Okay, that was fun. Let's do that again. I think there are 31 of these total. This group will have 16. Okay. These are a little bit all over the place. Let me even that out a little. Luckily it doesn't take too much coercion to make these things kind of planar again. Let's not use that one. Start with these four. Let's use this one next. Yeah, cool. Plenty of these. We've got all that, and then this is what we had left over. So I'll just save these for later. They seem useful. And so I'll tape these down and mix up another batch of glue. And the other one should have their glue set enough for us to start working by that time. Yeah, some of these are really loose, but the epoxy will help with that. kind of a process culminating in the self-adhesive wiring harness, which you can then stick onto the camera. Really, that's the, I can imagine like a little disposable package you just like open and then like stick it on there, and there's your wiring harness. Once we have little nanobots that can just burrow into the circuit board and connect to whatever you want, maybe that'll be popular. Universal mod chip. Oh, I can hear those birds outside. Those are the kind Tuco likes. I feel like this tape dispenser probably was not designed for always tearing off these tiny pieces of tape. Whoa. Do you ever just remember all of a sudden that pizza exists? Like, whoa, pizza. I don't know, maybe it's just me. Hashtag deep thoughts. Let's get another camera angle just to mix this up a bit. Hey dude, there's somebody in the chat being super loud and annoying, and I'm gonna have to reach over there and block you in just a sec if you keep that up. Yeah. Wait, is it seriously National Pizza Day? Was that just like some kind of propaganda burrowing into my head in this way that I didn't even notice? You're all gonna have me believing this, I'm sure. Every day is National Pizza Day. I can get behind that. Trying to make sure the wire separation is not too ambiguous here so it's easy to see where things go. I'm kind of concerned now because if it is actually National Pizza Day, why was I thinking of pizza? That has me really concerned. Was there some ad that I didn't even notice? Can't imagine where that would have happened. Maybe it's just a good day for pizza, you know, objectively speaking. Kyle's asking how often. Well, I don't know who the question is directed at, but Kyle says, "How often do you think of pizza?" And actually, not super often. Usually, it's if there's a food I obsess over, it would have to be hummus. I really like hummus, but pizza's fine. Sometimes I get into the mood where I really don't want cheese, but there's pizzas I like that don't have cheese, so. Getting there. Getting stiff from sitting in one place, though. It's tempting to take a walk, even though there's all that rain. Oh yeah, Dead Bug Engineering in chat points out that hummus is so easy to make and delicious, and I agree. I don't make it nearly as much as I should. I've only done that like once, and it was mostly, it's mostly been when a friend of mine has that idea. I should make it more. I'm just mostly bad at being an adult and like keeping groceries in the house and all of that stuff. Making hummus from scratch is like next level adulting, but it's definitely worthwhile. I should get on that. I feel like if I could identify with any generation, it's definitely the millennials. I feel like I'm a little bit old to be a millennial, but just barely. Oh yeah, Mikey in chat says, looking around San Fran on Google Street View, very diverse scenery, modern cars around so many old style buildings. Well, San Francisco's interesting. Like, a lot of the buildings are old because of like weird pseudo-historical preservation, but also pseudo kind of landowner price gouging kind of tactics, and so it's sort of weird. There's been a lot of restriction on new construction, and so a lot of the existing residences are these old Victorian buildings. Also, you can tell if someone's not from around here if they call it San Fran, because no one here calls it San Fran. You sound really weird saying that around here. In fact, like, it's just making my ears feel weird just saying that. People here call it SF, or the city. When talking about San Francisco specifically, it's always San Francisco or SF. But it's weird, even like, Oakland is a pretty good city in its own right, like, but when people say the city around here, they're usually talking about San Francisco. But if they say like downtown, then they probably mean downtown Oakland, so. There's Oaktown. I don't really spend much time in Berkeley, though. I'm also really close to Berkeley. Mostly all I know about Berkeley is there's this really good vegetarian restaurant there that sometimes I'll go to, but it's a Saturn Cafe. They're like a diner, but you can get pretty much everything there vegan if you want. It's pretty nice for weird vegetarians like me. I think that's the last of these taped. So ready for some more epoxy. Yeah, hummus, cucumbers, bagels. That's like my jam right there. I'm like out of food here. I'm very low on hummus. I don't have any bagels. So just checking the angle on these. Seeming all right so far. I'm adjusting a couple. And mix up a smaller batch of epoxy. So how's this one doing? Ooh, that one's very sturdy. So, yeah. Well, I have a stick now. Let's get, oh, here's Tuco. Alright, little bowl. Resin. Oh, Nicholas in the chat says, looks like an oven burn on my arm. And there is actually, it's this one. I don't know if that'll focus. Yeah, it was kind of old. I don't know. It's maybe 6 months old by this point. Yeah, 400-degree oven. Probably pizza related. I've got some very mundane scars though. Like I've also got this one on my wrist, the like really long one, which is from like slipping on the stairs and then catching myself on something sharp. I've got a really nice scar on my leg from a piece of unprotected rebar. Okay, try to do this by eye. This is a little dicey, but I think this resin will be all right. I'll just find out how off I was once I get near the end of these bottles and I can see how uneven they are. As it is, they seem pretty even. Alright. Yeah, there's some interesting paint jobs in San Francisco. There's a particularly famous set of old Victorian houses called the Painted Ladies. It's next to some park, like in the kind of, you know, near the center of the city, a little bit further west from where I used to live. Alright, let's try to do this. I don't usually do the touristy thing, but I don't know. It's been a while since I've spent time with my parents, but I think the last time I saw them both, they were visiting here in San Francisco, and those Painted Ladies were one thing my mom wanted to see. She's got a thing for Victorian houses, I guess. But lots went wrong on that trip. That dog. That's the dog I think that I hear barking in the hall. It's a really little thing, but always barking like he's 10 feet tall. What do you think, Tuco? I forget the dog's name. I think Tuco and the dog kind of get along more than I would have expected for cats and dogs. I don't think they're going to be best friends anytime soon. This really needs to be fussed into position somewhat better. I also really don't know why people started using fuss as a verb. It feels super weird, but also kind of makes total sense. I hear you, Tuke. I'm in the middle of a time-sensitive part. I hear you, Tuke. Tuco, wait. Be patient. This is getting warm. This means the reaction is starting to go, which means I need to get this down. Oh no. Oh, I think I ran out of time. Nope, now it's getting really gummy. I'll have to mix up another little batch to finish this up. That's dramatic. Like it just starts heating up, and then oh, it's polymerized. Great. Well, let's get another little cup and make a small batch. Another stick. Oh, here's a stick. Hey, Tuco, what do you want? Oh, here's the bolt. All right, a little more of that. All right, that's plenty. All right. Yeah, the other one was getting pretty warm. It's nice holding one that isn't so hot now. All right. A couple of these needed a little additional, but mostly it's this one. And I'm getting splinters in my finger now. All right, I think that's everything. Little epoxy globs. Okay. Cool. Let's put that aside. Maybe this is a good time to play with the cat. Although he seems to be doing that pretty well all on his own. So, maybe I'll just grab the boxes and swap these. Oh, actually, is there an opportunity to add a little more epoxy here? Yeah, I think so. Cool. Okay. Other than the occasional neurotic touch-up, I think we can swap these with the other now. Hey, Tuco. Cool. Well, let me get another temporary box. I'll put these in here and then put the little boxes back in the closet because that's a little easier to fit in there. Closet doesn't have a huge amount of floor space. Two. So that must be a good job for like baking trays. Hey Tuke, don't touch those, please. Hey Tuke. There's one too many. Oh, that one will fit down there. Okay, these are going in the closet where Tuco won't bother them. Soldering, testing, repackaging. Seems to be all that's left for these now. Hey Duke, this box is all yours if you want it. Mikey in chat asks, what on earth is Cow Palace? I think it's a sports venue. Or maybe it used to be, I don't know. I think it was in the process of closing. I don't know what's going on with that. I'm not really tuned into the sports universe, really. Oh, that's nice and epoxied. So, all right, microscope time. I hear you, tiger. Okay, one of these at a time. Phew, epoxy, so weird. All right. So now, wires and holes. And a hard to focus microscope. All the essentials. Well, I can see a couple of different ways to do this. I'm going to see how well these line up just using tweezers separately before trying to solder any of this. Oh man, the microscope is so far away. Well, that needs more light, but I think otherwise that's converging on a workable strategy. That's not going to be great. I mean, I think I'm going to have to do the strategy again where I tin the two and then bring them together. All right. It's going to be way too fiddly to actually put these, and I can't put them farther through the holes because then the tinned region is going to be inaccessible. Yeah. All right. Oh, Mikey is asking in chat if I've played with Google Earth VR. I have not. I should check that out. I feel like I don't know, there's a lot of unexplored territory even in like what I would like to try with VR. It's easy for me to get tunnel vision and focus on just the hardware projects and ignore my VR project ideas. This one, this isn't the ground plane. This is just something else without a lot of flux. All right, fine. Blah. This might be the sort of thing where I end up wanting to like solder a bunch of them and then flux a bunch of them. Let's see how this goes. like a consistent ordering for these too. Oh man, I'm starting to feel my patience run out as the hunger approaches. Might have to take a break to get a snack and come back to this. Maybe even get some groceries because I have very little to eat. This feels like this setup is not really good right now. Like, the lighting and the work holding and everything is just kind of bad right now. Wildmania in chat suggesting maybe it's time for the narrow tip. Maybe, although I specifically picked this wider tip when soldering exactly these earlier in this job because of the heavy ground plane. I wasn't really getting much progress with the thinner tip because the ground, like the right pad on here is ground with no thermal relief, and I think the left one is VCC with no thermal relief, and those two are both pretty tough. The two middle ones are fine. But that's where I am right now. So, speaking of progress report, so we've got all of these epoxied with prepped wires, which is pretty cool. It's a big milestone. And they just need a little bit of soldering. A little bit of soldering, a little bit of testing. So this is a batch of 15. I've got another 16 in the closet with their epoxy curing. Probably already pretty close to cured by now if these are any judge. So that's where things are at right now. I would do the traditional thing where I finish up with a game of fetch with Tuco, but he seems to be missing. All right, well, I think I'll have to regroup with my cat and my stomach and my solder and my flux, and I will see you again later for some more of this. So thanks for tuning in, and thanks again to all my supporters and fans. All the Patreon dollars and tools and everything have been super helpful and, in fact, critical for the success of all of this. So it's it's been great. So I look forward to putting out more edited videos and doing more streams, and I will see you all next time. In the meantime, happy hacking. Oh, there's Tuco.